So something that really frustrates me with people, and this goes for like 99% of the scientific discussions that I have with people, especially when it comes to diet, fitness, athletics, etc., is correlation and causation. Okay, and I'm just going to use the high carb debate just because that one's just one that I just recently had an argument about as my example. But I'll make it really succinct for you. So, what people are saying is that look, elite level athletes eat these high carb diets. So you see Usain Bolt, he's eating high carb, and you see, Michael Phelps, he's eating high carb. Or you look at your bodybuilders, Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, or Kai Green. Oh, look, they're all eating high carb. Why are they all so cut? Branch Warren is, boom, he looks amazing, right? He's eating high carb. You see all these different people, right? Oh, yeah, 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 they're doing the high carb thing, they're doing the high carb thing. And then we draw this conclusion that eating high carb must be good. That doesn't make any sense at all. And I'll explain to you exactly why that doesn't make sense. I'm not telling you that high carb is bad before I even go anywhere, but I'm just telling you that you cannot draw that conclusion based on what we're looking at. Okay, correlation is not causation. It could be that that correlation really is true, but you would have to do an empirical study where you're actually able to isolate the variables in order to draw that conclusion. I'll give you my counterexample to you. Let's just take cancer. Okay, 100% of people with cancer breathe oxygen. So therefore, breathing oxygen must cause cancer. No, because not everyone who breathes oxygen has cancer. Okay, 100% of people with HIV breathe oxygen. So therefore, breathing oxygen must cause HIV. No, there's many, many people, more people than not, who breathe oxygen and don't have HIV. Alright, so by that same token, I can easily say to you, okay, so there's a bunch of elite level athletes who eat high carb, so eating high carb must be good for athletic performance. And I can turn around and say to you, no, there's a lot of people eating high carb who are crappy athletes. Eating high carb doesn't even necessarily fuel your athletic endeavors. Okay, I will tell you this much. All right, and this is Chad's honest truth. I don't mean that. I just didn't want to make this a religious thing or anything, but Chad's honest truth. Okay, I have worked with a large number of athletes, and these guys could eat anything. It it don't matter. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. It really doesn't matter what these guys eat. I have had athletes that were like religious about their diet, like I have to eat exactly this many grams of protein, this many grams of carbohydrates, and this many grams of fat, and it's got to be precise, and I have to eat at these intervals exactly on these hours, and it's got to be dialed in, right? Because that's just their personality type, actually. Do they really need to eat like that? Nope. Because I've had other guys that are like, yeah, so, I hit like Dunkin' Donuts and had like a dozen donuts for breakfast, and then I swung by Wendy's and got a triple whatever that giant square hamburger is that they get. I got a triple whatever thingy with french fries for lunch, and then, I think for dinner I'm going to swing past like KFC and get some chicken, and, maybe I'll swing by Pizza Hut later and eat a pizza. And they perform just as well. So what's really going on there? Uh, what's really going on there is that they're genetically better than everybody else. That's what's really happening there. Okay, they are genetically gifted, which is why they're a professional athlete, which is why they are so athletically inclined, and those genetic gifts also make them more tolerant to food. They don't get fat easily. They can eat all the junk they want. They don't get fat. Okay, um, they just don't. I've seen my athletes do it. I don't, and like it's funny because I'll have a guy who is like dialed in. I get plenty of athletes who aren't pro athletes. Okay, I get plenty of athletes who are very very serious about their training. They're like I want to make it to the next level. They work their ass off, but they just don't have the genetics. And even when they're dialed in doing like this like paleo zone diet where like they have to follow these exact macros and eat these really specific foods and all this stuff like that, They don't get nearly the results that my gifted athlete eating a diet of pizza, beer, and potato chips gets. And that it's discouraging to me sometimes, even because I look at this and I'm like, I'm doing nothing as a coach. This guy is so good, it doesn't matter what I do. I could have him do hula hooping while drinking a beer, and he just grows more muscle. I've had athletes like that. I've been fortunate enough to have athletes that made me look good. Um, because I've had athletes that just were so naturally gifted that honestly, if I was like, oh, you want to play offensive line? Just do some roller skating and then, I don't know, play video games for like 3 hours. You'll be fine. And they really would. They genuinely would just put on more muscle, sitting around playing video games, and they just keep growing muscle. I don't have an explanation for it. They're just genetically better. Um, So if you want to draw the conclusion that a high carb diet really improves athletic performance, what you need to do is take a population and put them on a low carb, high fat diet, test everyone on that population, put them all onto a high carb diet, low fat, and then retest. It needs to be the same individuals. You can't take, let me take my elite athletes and compare them to sedentary people. Oh, well, the carbohydrate diet works for the pro athletes, so it must work for the sedentary people too. Same thing goes though for the high fat diet. I don't care if we were talking high fat. Oh, high fat diet works really well for my elite level athlete, so it must work for my sedentary people. It just, you can't this it's not even apples and oranges because there's not even comparing fruit. Okay, it's like comparing apples and asteroids. Like they completely unrelated in every single way, shape, and form. I mean, that'd be like if you wanted to compare my grandmother and like Tom Brady. Well, Tom Brady eats this, so my grandmother should eat this too. You just can't draw that conclusion, and that's why I talk about correlation is not causation, and you cannot draw a conclusion from a correlation. You have to have isolated variables in order to make that conclusion. So again, as you can see, um, elite level athletes eat carbohydrates, but not everyone who eats carbohydrates is an elite level athlete, so you cannot draw that conclusion that carbohydrates are essential for athletic performance, because until you're able to isolate those variables within the same population on both sides of it, so whether it's elite level athletes looking at them with and without carbs, and it has to be the same individuals because their metabolism changes, and or you want to look at sedentary people and say, hey, carbs versus no carbs on sedentary people, either one is fine, but you cannot just randomly compare based on a correlation. So I hope that clears things up. I hope people now understand where I'm coming from. I'm not anti-carb, and I'm certainly not pro-carb either. I am just pro-science. So please just give me some data, and based on the data, I will formulate a conclusion based on the data. But I'm not going to formulate a conclusion based on a very loose correlation.